Pokémon Scarlet actually has a ton of water type encounters, and I'm only going to be using them today for a hardcore Nuzlocke. That means if Pokemon faints in battle, I have to release it. I can't use items in battle except held items, no terastilizing, no leveling past the next gym leader's ace, and I have to nickname my whole team. I get my starter Quaxly, an Azumarill, a Psyduck, and a Tootle, and I also catch an Eevee which I can use later when I get Waterstone. We're also not supposed to be able to surf yet, but by sliding down this hill, I can get this Surskit. It's not going to be very useful since I can't evolve it as it loses its water type when it evolves, but I can maybe use it as a sacrifice later, and it's always useful to have an extra Pokemon. For the first gym, I can evolve my Azumarill into a Marill. I can also catch a Buizel, and I can catch probably the most overpowered encounter in the entire game, a Magikarp. After that, I head over to the first gym. This gym's bug type, but after this, the second gym's grass, and the third gym's electric, so I'm really going to struggle. I actually lost this run against the grass gym Brassius, and I then lost the second attempt at this run against the electric gym, so I'm really not looking forward to those ones. I have wing attack on Quaxly, so this gym's pretty easy. I took her first Pokemon out with 1 wing attack, and then her Tarantula went down to 2. Her final Pokemon Teddiursa has the gimmick that it just uses Fury Cutter, which gets stronger every time it uses it, so I have to take it out quickly. I decided to switch into Marill for this fight. Taught Marill Charm, which lowers its attack by 2 stages, which is going to come in really handy against this Fury Cutter. If I can use that a few times, then Teddiursa won't be able to do too much damage, and I can take it out pretty easily. Surprisingly, it just went for Fury Swipes on the first turn, and it actually missed as well, so I just got a free Charm. I went for a second one to take it to -4 attack, and it went for Fury Cutter this time. It hit and did absolutely nothing. It looks like my strategy is going to work, so I went for one more Charm just to take it to the minimum attack it could possibly have. I went for another Fury Cutter, and even though this one's a little bit stronger than the last one, he's lost so much attack damage that he just can't do anything. He actually missed his next Fury Cutter, and I started going for Slam. It did near enough to 3rd damage, but I don't think 3 will be able to take it down. It's okay though, because he can't do any damage to me, so I just keep going for Slam. Second one takes him down to the orange. And I'm not actually sure if Fury Cutter's damage gets reset when he misses, but he's not doing enough damage now for me to even notice either way. A third one isn't enough as he goes into the red, and he goes for one more Fury Cutter, and I go for one more Slam to finish this fight. Take down the Teddiursa, and with that we've got our first gym badge. It's time to move on to the more difficult fights of this run. We actually get a really nice evolution next, where we can evolve Quaxly into Quaxwell. I actually quite like the starters in this game. I know they get a lot of hate, but I think they're alright. Titan fights in these games are pretty easy, especially since you have Arven on your side for the harder part of the fight. It's pretty good at drawing aggro, and the Titans seem to just focus him anyway. We managed to take Clorf down with ease, and that's the first Titan down. It's pretty hard to keep track of where all the Pokemon are on the map, so I'm just getting encounters as and when I see them. We'll get a Marini next, and we head over to the second gym. I've lost the first run against Brassius, so I'm a bit nervous here. He sends in his Petil, and I start with Quaxwell. I can use Wing Attack to take him down quite easily, at least for the first few Pokemon. The real problem is his Sudowoodo. Even though it terastalizes into a Grass type, and Wing Attack is going to be super effective, by the time I get there, Quaxwell's already going to be on pretty low health, and I'm going to need to switch. Another thing I forgot to mention is you can't actually play on set mode in these games, so instead of that I just went for no terastilizing. I'm going to allow to switch between fights because I really can't do anything else. It literally won't let you put set mode on. It's kind of annoying that they'd remove such an easy feature. It's like you'd think that they would do a little bit of research and see that people like to do Nuzlocks and that set mode's a vital part of that, but anyway, we can't use it, so we're not going to use it for this run. I send in Marill to go up against his Sudowoodo, since I can lower its attack, and since it uses mostly physical attacks in Trailblaze and Rock Throw, I can just keep using Charm and lower its attack as much as I can. I can also use Disable when I switch into my Psyduck and try and stop him from using Trailblaze, but unfortunately Rock Throw is his only other move, and it's pretty much super effective against the rest of my team anyway, so it's not really going to help. I've lowered its attack as much as I can, and I definitely need to switch Marill in now. Send in Buizel next, which to be honest is a pretty useless Pokemon until it evolves, but hopefully I can do a little bit of damage. He manages to avoid a Rock Throw, and I go for a low kick. He hits me with a Trailblaze, taking Buizel down to just over half health. We hit the low kick and it really doesn't do a whole lot. Unfortunately, since he's terastilized into a grass type, it's not super effective anymore. So I just start going for Mud Slap to try and lower his accuracy. At least if I get his accuracy down before I switch, then maybe he'll miss and I can do a bit more damage with another Pokemon. I'm forced to switch in now, so I send in Psyduck next, and I'm going to try and go for Disable. The Psyduck that I encountered is kind of annoying since it has the Cloud 9 ability, and most of the time it's not going to be useful, and sometimes it might even be raining, which would boost all my water type moves, and Psyduck will just stop the rain. Kind of a rubbish ability to have, but we managed to disable his Trailblaze, and we can move on now. I decided to go for a Psybeam since switching to another Pokemon isn't really going to be the best option. I need to start doing some damage to this thing, and if that means losing a team member, then it is what it is. We hit him with Psybeam twice as he keeps missing, and he goes for a third Rock Throw and misses again. This Psybeam takes him below half, and it's actually looking really good now. Rock Throw is a pretty inaccurate attack as it is, and since I've lowered his accuracy and disabled his Trailblaze, there wasn't really a whole lot he could do in retaliation. The disable stopped working and he goes for a Trailblaze, but I just disable it another time. Hopefully we'll be able to take him down now without him even hitting Tutor, but I switch in just in case. If he hits Psyduck one more time, we'd probably lose Psyduck, and since he's so inaccurate now, it would probably be a wasted loss. Rock Throw really can't do anything to Tutor either, so I just start going for Water Guns. Probably not the best move to use here since it's not very effective, so I switch to Bite. He missed his next Rock Throw, and Bite hit for a little bit more than Water Gun. At this point I have a lot of strong Pokemon that haven't evolved yet, and until I evolve them they really can't do a whole lot. It's kind of annoying because the disable stops working on the last attack for me to take him down. If Tutor gets hit with a Trailblaze, it'll be 4 times effective. I decide to risk it, and luckily he misses his Trailblaze, meaning one more bite is enough to take the Sudowoodo down. First time I attempted this challenge, Brassius wiped my entire team with that Sudowoodo. And on the second time, I actually beat him, but lost to Iona, which is the next gym. So this is a victory, but I've been here before, and I've lost the run after, so I need to be really careful. I evolved my Meryl into an Azumarill, and it actually has the best ability in the game in my opinion. Huge power. This means I can teach it physical moves, and they'll all do double damage. I head over to the second Titan now, and it's a pretty easy one. Again, Arven just tanks all the damage, and he actually has super effective Pokemon this early on. And he just keeps going for Smackdown, which wipes it out without me even really needing to do anything. That was a nice easy victory, and we can move on from here. There's a little pool of water below this Titan that leads down a stream down the hill. I can catch quite a few encounters here, so I get a Basculin and an Arrokuda. I also evolve my Magikarp into what is probably the best encounter in the game, Gyarados. I know a lot of people don't use him, but I'm going to use him anyway. We're up against the first Team Star boss now, which is Giacomo, completely normal name that I hear all the time. He starts with his Pawniard, and I start with my huge power Azumarill. One Bulldoze is more than enough to take it out in one hit, and all he's got left is his Starmobile. I decided to go for a Charm next turn and lower its attack, and randomly it just started raining. I don't really know why, but I'm not going to question it. This means I can use an Aqua Tail, which is a physical move, after a few more Charms, and just take it out pretty much in one hit. We hit 3 Charms and Azumarill's actually getting surprisingly low now, so I decided to switch instead and send out Gyarados. What I didn't realise is that I hadn't taught Gyarados really any moves, so all he had was Splash, Tackle and Bite. There's not a whole lot I can do against a Steel type with all those rubbish moves, so I decided to switch again. Knew I could tank a hit or two, so I decided to just go for a couple of tackles before I switched, just to get a tiny little bit of damage off first. He used a Snarl which didn't do a whole lot, and then he went for another Snarl and actually missed, meaning I get another free tackle. We can probably take about one more hit and one more tackle, take him down to just over a quarter of his health taken away. I mean, that's better than nothing, and now I get to switch into another Pokemon. I want to be really careful with these Starmobiles because they always wipe out team members for me. I send in Weasel and he's immediately hit with a Snarl, which lowers his special attack and does pretty decent damage. I went for a Mud Slap next to try and lower his accuracy, and hopefully then when I switch to another team member he'll miss and not do too much damage. I was expecting another Snarl next turn, but he went for Swift instead, and it did huge damage and knocked Weasel out. I'm actually not too disappointed about that, since there's around 20 or 30 encounters we can get in this game, and to be honest, Weasel isn't really that great. Even when it evolves, it's not that great. I send in my starter next, and he goes for a Snarl, which lowers my special attack. That's fine since I'm using low kick anyway. My plan is to lower his speed as much as I can now, and I also got a Shell Bell from a random trade. I often do surprise trades in the background just to see what I get for fun, and sometimes they're holding good items like the Shell Bell, so I decided to take it and put it on Quaxley. This means I can get a little bit of health back every time I do damage. Some people might think this is cheating, and I guess it probably is, but I don't really care, to be honest. Feel free to write a comment in the bottom and I'll definitely not read it. To be honest, if I'm going to lose this run, I don't think an item like Shell Bell is really going to make that much of a difference. His Starmobile keeps lowering my special attack, which is completely pointless since I'm using low kick anyway, and I get it to the point where one more low kick is going to be enough to take it out. I'm a bit worried about losing my starter here, so I switch into my Psyduck instead. I know I can tank at least one hit from Snarl, and then I can hit him back with a move and take him down. Snarl doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and we go for a Water Pulse next turn, which hopefully should be more than enough to take it down. He outspeeds us and just goes for a Metal Sound, which isn't really going to help him. We connect with a Water Pulse next, but it doesn't do quite enough damage to take him down. I go for another one next turn, and his Snarl misses. I don't think it would have been enough to take Psyduck down anyway, and we go for the last Water Pulse, taking out his Starmobile. This is the first Team Star member beaten, but Team Star is going to be a big problem later on. I head over to the Water Gym, but I'm not going to fight the Water Gym. I'm going to head behind it where I can pick up a Water Stone and get what is probably the second best encounter in this entire run. I evolve my Eevee into a Vaporeon. I also head down to a nearby beach where I can catch a Wingull, and I can also catch Wiglet. I actually had to look up how to get this Pokemon, since it kept burrowing underground every time I went near it. You have to sneak up on it and throw a Pokeball. There's a lot of weird stuff like this in this game. I catch Luvdisc next, and I also catch another weird Pokemon, which is Venison. You have to evolve this using Union Circle, and I didn't have anyone available that I could do it with at the moment, so I decided to just leave it as is. I also catch a Shelder, which is also going to need another Water Stone to evolve, and I catch a Veluza, which could come in quite handy with the Psychic type later on. I evolve my Chewtle into a really good encounter, Dreadnought. This is going to come in really useful. I also catch a Quillfish, which should come in really handy since it knows Toxic Spikes, which can poison an enemy gym leader's team. I find another Water Stone off on the beach, so I can evolve my new Shelder into a Cloyster. I personally think Cloyster's really underrated. I know a lot of pros use it, but I think normal people just don't really use it that often. It is a good Pokemon though. Speaking of good Pokemon, we can pick up a Bruxitch, which is definitely not a good Pokemon. We have to have a fight against Nomura next, and she sends in her Rockruff first. Does she not know we're a water type team? I decided to start with my huge power Azumarill, and one Aqua Tail, which is a physical move, does double damage, taking it out with ease. She sends in her Poor Me next, which is a real problem. She normally terastalizes this Pokemon, but at this point she's got a new team member and she's not going to terastalize. We managed to take it out with one Bulldoze, and she sends in her Crocodile. I don't think it has Torch Song yet, which is a really powerful move. It does a lot of damage, and it also raises special attack, meaning it does more damage the more times she uses it. Luckily, one Aqua Tail was enough to take the Crocodile out, and I'm pretty sure next time we face her, she's going to have Torch Song, so we've got to be really careful. I get another new encounter next, which is Slowpoke, and it's time to face Iona. This is the furthest I've ever got in this run, and she's a real problem. There's not a whole lot I can do against her. I decided to send in Quillfish first and set up some Toxic Spikes. At least this way I can poison her team members, and then that way it's just a matter of time before I take them down. She starts with a Watchful, and she goes for a Spark. It does pretty big damage, but actually less than I was expecting, and Poison Point manages to poison it, meaning I can now poison her entire team. I went for a Poison Tail next, and it actually did really good damage. She hits me with a Spark, and the Poison Chip takes her down to the point where one more Poison Chip will finish her off. I decided to switch since I can take her down with just the Poison next turn. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can really switch into since a Spark's going to do huge damage to everything. Sure, Bruxish is a useful Pokemon, but I really struggle to pronounce it, and I don't feel like saying its name over and over again during this video, so I send it in as a sacrifice. It gets hit with a Spark, and it gets paralysed, which is kind of annoying, but the poison manages to take the Watchful down just as I expected. She sends in her Belly Bolt next, and it gets poisoned by the Poison Spikes. I'm going to go for a Confusion here, in the hopes that I confuse it. It hits me with a Spark, taking me down to 10 HP, and of course, we get fully paralysed. This is annoying, but at least it does a little bit of poison chip. I decide to just go for another Confusion and let Bruxish die. Good riddance. It's time to send in our next Pokemon. And I actually have Dreadnought on the team now, which is a Rock type, and I've taught it Rock Blast, which is actually a really powerful move. I'm not going to use it yet since I want to save it for our race, but this is actually a really useful one. I had it in the last run, but I didn't have Rock Blast, so this might actually be the time that I win. I actually made a big mistake here since I sent Cloyster in and went for Icicle Spear. Belly Bolt has the ability Electromorphosis, which means it gets stronger every time it's hit. So Icicle Spear hits 5 times and triggers its ability 5 times. It hits us with a Spark and does huge damage, but luckily doesn't take us down. It's on red health now, so at least I can go for an Icicle Spear and outspeed it, but that was actually really dangerous and I need to be more careful of that kind of stuff. I decide to switch in next since Cloyster's a really good Pokemon and I really don't want to lose it. She sends in her Luxio and it gets poisoned by the Poison Spikes. I send in my huge power Azumarill and I'm going to go for a Bulldoze here since it's super effective. She actually manages to outspeed and hits with a Spark, getting the paralysis off and taking us just above half health. Luckily we don't get paralysed and we hit the Bulldoze, taking her really low into the lower range. She also gets hit with Poison Chip. I'm guessing one more poison would be enough to take it down, so I decide to set up a light screen, which will help against her electric type moves in the next fight. The poison isn't enough to take Luxio down, and I'm definitely going to need to switch now, since Azumarill's only on 6 HP. I send in my Veluza, which is my last healthy Pokemon apart from Dreadnought, since I'm sure it can tank one hit, and I wouldn't be devastated if I lost it. It hits us with a Spark, taking us down to 30 HP, and the Poison Chip's enough to finish off the Luxio. This means I get to use a free switch since we're not playing on set mode, and I can send in Dreadnought against her ace Mismagius, you know, that classic electric type. She terastilises it into an electric type, which is actually a really stupid move against Dreadnought since now I can use Rock Blast on it, which is going to be super effective. She goes for a Confuse Ray first turn, and that could actually be a real problem if we hit ourselves. We already got paralysed earlier, so surely we're not that unlucky. Yeah, so we hit ourselves in confusion, and I'm just going to have to go for Rock Blast again, since there's not a whole lot I can really do here. All I'm going to have to do is hope that we hit 5 times and do huge damage. She misses her Charge Beam, which is huge, and then we snap out of confusion. That is actually massive. For some reason we managed to miss our Rock Blast as well, and she goes for a Confuse Ray again, which just confuses us, so we're right back where we started. We go for another Rock Blast, and we actually break through confusion this time, and miss. And Light Screen wears off. This is a real problem. I don't know what we're supposed to do here. At least she's missing as well. She goes for another Charge Beam and misses again. We break through the confusion again, and miss for a 4th time. This is actually ridiculous, as she's now hit her Charge Beam. It does huge damage to Dreadnought, taking him down to 13 HP. We do snap out of our confusion and hit our next Rock Blast. It's doing actually huge damage, and I'm thinking we can take it out if we get 5 hits. That's exactly what happens, and we take it down with ease. That was really close since we didn't have another healthy team member to switch into, and we could have quite easily lost Dreadnought here. This is now the furthest I've got, and I don't think I'll be restarting this run if I lose now. But luckily we've got a really easy run next with the Fire type Team Star member, Mela. I'm still not going to take her for granted, since she could easily take my team down. I've done that before where I've expected the fight to be really easy and lost team members for no reason. I send in Dreadnought and we just go for Rock Blast and completely wipe her out. Luckily we didn't lose anyone here, and it's time for the 3rd Titan. Once again this is going to be really easy since we've got Arven to just tank all the damage. We use Cloyster, which is probably not the best option, but at least he's quite tanky, and an Icicle Spear is more than enough to finish it off. I probably could have used a better Pokemon here, like my Azumarill, but at least we won and we didn't lose any team members. I can actually get another encounter now before I go to the 4th gym, which is Shellos. A Gastrodon could be quite useful later on in the run, so I'm going to keep this one. We're up against the 4th gym leader now, which is a water type. This shouldn't be as hard as the others, but even though it's a water type, we don't actually have a whole lot that we can do against it. I can use my Marini now, since the level cap's gone higher, so I send that in first. It doesn't really do a whole lot of impressive stuff, and I have to switch it out to Dreadnought. His Velouz is just using Slash, which isn't doing a whole lot of damage, and even with a critical hit, it only does a tiny little bit. He goes for Rockle Cutter next, which does a decent bit more, but doesn't even take us below half health, as 2 crunches take it down. He sends in his Wog Trio next, and it gets poisoned from Poison Spikes, which we set up at the start. A Rock Blast is more than enough to take this down. If it hit 2 times it wouldn't have been, but luckily it hits 3, and he sends in his Ace next. It's a Crabominable, and he terastilises it into a water type. I've switched into my Vaporeon now, and I start going for Sand Attack to lower its accuracy. It hits with a pretty powerful slam, but we've poisoned it from the Poison Spikes, so my plan is to lower its accuracy as much as I can, and just let the Poison Chip do all the damage. He hits with another slam, and I'm definitely going to have to switch now. I send in Gyarados, who still doesn't really know any good moves, and he hits me with a Crab Hammer, which is not very effective, and doesn't really do anything. But at least we've got Crunch now instead of Bite, and that's actually doing decent damage, especially with the Poison Chip. I decide to switch into my Cloyster as he goes for another slam, and the poison takes him into the red. It's time for an Icicle Spear, and we outspeed, easily finishing it off. We get a critical hit, and then 2 more hits finish it. It's actually really weak, and I was expecting it to do more damage, but he didn't really have very much health, so it didn't matter anyway. This is the 4th gym down, and we're halfway towards the Pokemon League. I evolved my Shellos into a Gastrodon, which is going to come in quite handy later. I also evolved my Psyduck into a Golduck, which is going to be very useful against the next Team Star member. The next one is Atticus, the Poison type. This is the point when Team Star start getting a bit difficult. I have quite a lot of team members, and Atticus actually has some pretty strong contenders. He starts off strong as Slowpoke does barely anything to Skuntank and gets knocked out immediately with his Sucker Punch. I'm not too concerned about this. I have a lot of Psychic Water types, and it's kind of annoying to lose Slowpoke, but it's not too bad. I decide to go for a workup with Quaxwell, so I can get my attack up a little bit before attacking. I'm going to try Low Sweep because it's super effective, and I think I can do a decent amount of damage with it. A Skuntank sets up a Toxic, which is really annoying, and it's going to be a bit of a theme in this fight. I can only do a certain amount of damage, and with Toxic Chip every turn, my team members are going to get weak very quickly. Low Sweep didn't do a whole lot, but it did lower its speed. I go for another Low Sweep next turn, and it takes him into the red. 1 more should be enough to take Skuntank down. I'm pretty sure Atticus' Stun Tank doesn't have Aftermath, so even when I beat it, it shouldn't do too much damage. He goes for a Venoshock, which with me being poisoned does double damage, and we take Chip from the poison again. It's a bit risky not to switch here, but I know I'm going to outspeed since I've been lowering his speed every turn, and I go for another Low Sweep to finish him off. This at least gets rid of the Skuntank, and since it doesn't have Aftermath, it doesn't do any damage. I switch into my new Gastrodon, and we take out the Muck pretty easily. I was trying to get an Omni boost of Ancient Power, but it didn't really work. He sends in Reverum next, and it's not the Starmobile, he actually has another Reverum. I go for 2 Muddy Waters and take him down to a Slither when I'm forced to switch into Golduck. 1 Aqua Tail is enough to take down Reverum, not before he takes us down to half health. My team's getting pretty weak here now, but at least it's just the Starmobile left. A Noxious Talk takes Golduck down to 9 HP, and I'm going to be forced to switch again. I stupidly went for a Zen Headbutt, and it missed. I don't really have too many team members left, so I don't know if I'm actually going to switch. I think I'm just going to let Golduck go down. At least this way I get a clean switch into another team member. I'd rather lose Golduck than my entire team. I send in Dreadnought next and start going for Rock Blast. It misses the first turn, and he keeps going for Spin Out, which doesn't do too much damage. It actually lowers his speed as well, and we go for a Rock Blast next turn. It's not doing a whole lot of damage, but as long as we can hit more than once, it's going to do quite a lot. You can get up to 5 hits on Rock Blast, and actually, surprisingly, it hits 5 times quite often. Sometimes it will hit 3 or 4, but that's still quite a lot of damage. If we can hit 5 times, we could probably take it out in 3 hits. But we'll see how it goes. First one hits 4 times, which is good. The second one hits 3, and then the final one is enough to take it out. I wasn't actually expecting Atticus to be that difficult, and to be honest, I think we're quite lucky to have only lost Golduck here. There are a lot of factors that could have gone wrong, and meant we would have lost a lot more team members than that, so I'm actually happy with that fight. Afterwards, Quaxwell finally evolves into his final form, Quacksquavel. This is actually a really good Pokemon to have, and I'm happy to have it on the team. Larry's up next, and I'm pretty confident taking him on. The best thing he has is a Staraptor, and it uses Facade, which shouldn't do too much damage to quite a few of my team members. Start with Vaporeon, and he leads with his Clemala. It starts with a Yawn, which means that Vaporeon will fall asleep next turn, and then he goes for a Slam and takes us below half health. Even with the HP restored from leftovers, and the HP restored from Aquavale, it doesn't really do that much. I reckon he can probably take us out with another one, and with Vaporeon asleep, I decided to go for a Water Pulse, just in case. We didn't wake up, but luckily we managed to avoid the Slam, meaning that with these heals, we can definitely survive another Slam. We go for another Water Pulse to see if we wake up, but we stay asleep again. He's going to go for another Slam now, and he actually misses for a second time in a row. This is really good. Vaporeon might actually wake up. If we can land a Water Pulse, we might even get the confusion off as well, and Vaporeon might be able to take Quamala out. We stay asleep for a third turn, which is really annoying, and the Slam takes us down to about 50 HP. With the heal, we're probably going to go down to another Slam, and Vaporeon's not looking like he's going to wake up. I just go for one more Water Pulse, and we do actually wake up this time. Water Pulse takes him to the orange, but a Slam takes Vaporeon down. Watching this back, I don't really know what I was thinking. I should have just switched Vaporeon out when he fell asleep. It's really annoying to lose Vaporeon here, but I don't think I was thinking straight. I sent in Gyarados next and started going for Water Pulses. He finally has a Water type move now and was able to take Kamala down. I switched into Gastrodon to take on his Dunsparce, and our first Body Slam manages to get the paralysis off. This is actually really good since we can switch to Muddy Water now and do actually a decent amount of damage. He gets fully paralysed next turn, and another Muddy Water is enough to take it out. It's time for his Staraptor now, and this thing can't actually do a whole lot to my team. I decide to switch into Cloyster, and the Facade doesn't do too much damage. We go for a Whirlpool to set up the damage for every turn, and then we start going for Icicle Spear. This way we can get a little bit of chip at the end of each turn. He goes for another Facade, taking us into the low orange, and we actually get 5 hits from Icicle Spear. It's not doing a huge amount of damage on its own, but 5 hits is actually a decent chunk. I'm going to have to switch now since I really don't want to lose Cloyster, so I decide to switch into my Dreadnought. I know Facade isn't going to do a huge amount of damage to Dreadnought, and I can probably finish it off with a Rock Blast. Facade only takes about 27 HP, and we use Rock Blast next turn. He actually outspeeds and hits another Facade, taking us down to 66, and Rock Blast misses. This move's actually getting a bit annoying. I don't know why it keeps missing. He hits us with another Facade, and we're down to 41 now, but we actually hit this final Rock Blast. This is enough to take Larry down and get us our 5th gym badge. That was really good. We actually managed to do it only losing one team member. It's annoying that it was Vaporeon, but it is what it is. We're actually forced into a fight with Nomura next, and we didn't even get a chance to release Vaporeon. And since he's first in our team, he comes straight in, meaning we have to switch straight away since he's not usable in this fight. This means that she gets a free hit off against us, which is kind of annoying. I sent Dreadnought in, and he used a Bite, which didn't really do any damage. Goes for Excel Rock next, and we start using Water Gun. I'm not sure why Dreadnought doesn't have a better Water type move at this point, and I decided to go for Rock Blast next turn, since I think it's going to do more damage. It hits 3 times and leaves her with a Slither. This is really annoying. One more hit would have taken it down. She just keeps going for Bite, which isn't doing a whole lot, and next turn I switch into Gastrodon to take on her Pawmi. I'm trying to get an Omni boost here, but it wasn't really working, so I switched to Body Slam. I didn't get the paralysis off, but she was just using weak moves anyway, so another Body Slam was enough to take her Pawmo down. The next team member is a Gumi, and I decided to just stay in with Gastrodon since I don't think there's a whole lot she can do against us. 2 Body Slams easily took the Gumi down, and it was time for our final Pokemon. This is the thing I was talking about earlier. It's going to use Torch Song over and over again, and it's going to get stronger every time. I've had it before where Torch Song's wiped my entire team because it just gets out of hand. Once her special attack's up to a certain point, there's really nothing you can do and she just one-shots you every single time. I decided to send in Gyarados as he knows Aqua Tail now, and one Aqua Tail took her down to half HP. Luckily her Torch Song's really weak now, so another Aqua Tail was easy enough to take it down. It's really weird being afraid of a fire type when you're doing a mono water type run, but that thing's really dangerous. Luckily we took down Nomura Deathless, and now we can release Vaporeon. We can go straight for the 6th gym now, and it's time for Rhyme and her ghost types. This is a double battle, and she starts with Mimikyu and Banette. Her Mimikyu is going to have Disguise, so whatever attack I do first isn't going to do any damage. I prepared for this, and I went for a Crunch on Banette, taking it down to the red. In fact, Squabble went for an Aqua Step, which isn't going to do any damage this turn, but at least will raise its speed. My plan is to keep using Aqua Step and get huge speed on Squabble and outspeed every single one of her team members. I'm also using leftovers so we get a little bit of HP back every turn. We're also getting stat boosts from the crowds outside. This is similar to the Fairy Gym in Pokémon Sword where you get a boost every turn. This makes this gym pretty trivial, and we take our Banette down next. We hit her Houndstone with one Aqua Step and take it down to the red, making Squabble's speed even higher. She gets a critical hit on Gyarados, but it doesn't really do much, and another Crunch is enough to take Mimikyu out. Her Houndstone's going to use Phantom Force next, as she sends her Toxtricity out, and Terra Evolves it. This is kind of stupid because it was an electric type, and now it's a ghost type, so I can literally just hit it with Crunch. An Aqua Step takes it down to the red, and a Crunch finishes it off. I really wasn't expecting Phantom Force to do this much damage, as she hits my Gyarados. Her Houndstone comes out of nowhere, and takes Gyarados out. It was a critical hit, but to be honest, I think it probably would have taken Gyarados down too, and that was just a misplay from me. One more Aqua Step was enough to take it out, and unfortunately we lost the team member there. We really didn't need to do that. I could have easily switched. Up against the Great Tusk, it randomly takes out my Finizen, which was the newest member of the team, but I'm not too disappointed about that. I wasn't going to evolve it anyway, and it's only really useful in its second form. I send in my Cloyster, and we easily take down the Great Tusk. That's 4 Titans down, 3 star team members taken down, and 6 gyms. I evolve into a Toxapex, and it's time to take on Nomura again. We make it all the way to her final Pokemon without losing anyone, and it's my new Toxapex that's going to take it on. The first Surf hits pretty hard, but doesn't take her down to half HP. She's hitting us with Torch Song, so she's getting a special attack boost every turn. But we get a second Surf off and take her really close to red HP. It's time to switch now, since Torch Song's doing too much damage, but for some reason I decided not to, and Toxapex went down. I don't know what I was thinking here. I know I didn't have that many healthy Pokemon, but Azumarill probably could have tanked one of those. At least now I've got a clean switch in, and I go for an Aqua Tail. You can see why I was so terrified of this move earlier, as Torch Song takes us down to 18 HP from one hit. Luckily another Aqua Tail is enough to take out Nomura's final Pokemon, and with that we've beaten her again. She's getting pretty dangerous at this point. I'm going to add some new team members now, as we evolve Wiglet into Wugtrio. We managed to catch a Finneon in one of the Terra Raid battles. And then we got an encounter that I actually wasn't expecting, as it doesn't come up in the Pokédex, but we got an Araquanid from another Terra Raid battle. This was actually a real surprise, and a really good surprise right before Tulip, the Psychic Gym, as a bug type's going to come in really handy. She starts with her Farigiraf, and I decided to start with Dreadnought this time. My plan is to go for Crunches and see how much damage I can do. The Zen Headbutt doesn't really do much, and we managed to get 2 Crunches off, taking it out. She sends in her Gardevoir next, and this thing's a real danger. She hits us with an Energy Ball and takes Dreadnought out in one hit. That is so annoying. I didn't know he had that move, and really we probably could have avoided that. I send in Araquanid next, and we go for a Lunge. Hopefully a bug type move is going to do decent damage, as she starts with a Psychic. We managed to take more than half, and she's done less than half. So next turn she goes for another Psychic, taking us into the orange, and one more Lunge takes out Gardevoir. That was probably one of the biggest threats on her team, and I'm really happy to take it out. I decide to bring Araquanid back because I want to keep him alive, and I send in Quacksquabble next. Her Esparthra comes in and goes for a Psychic, doing huge damage. I was trying to set up high speed here with Aqua Step, but she managed to hit us and do quite a decent bit of damage. She survived with just a sliver, and I decided to switch in to Azumarill. Hopefully my huge power will be enough to take it down, but since this wasn't a clean switch, she gets a free Psychic off against me. It doesn't do a huge amount, so we will get one attack, but I know she's going to outspeed with another Psychic, taking us into the orange. This is really annoying because I'm going to have to switch Azumarill out. Her final Pokemon is going to be a real problem. I'm not really sure what it's going to be doing here, so I decide to send in my newest member, Wugtrio. This way I can see what moves it's going to use before having to switch to one of my more powerful team members. I decide to go for a Sucker Punch since I know it's going to go for an attacking move, and it actually does decent damage, but a Petal Blizzard is not what I wanted to see here. She easily takes out Wugtrio, and I know whatever I send in next is going to die to a Petal Blizzard. My best hope is to send in Gastrodon, who's still at full health, and I go for a Muddy Water. This might not be the best attacking move to use, but it has a chance of lowering accuracy. We didn't even get a chance to hit it, as she gets a critical hit with Petal Blizzard and takes Gastrodon out. To be honest, even without the crit, she probably would have taken us down there. I send in Araquanid next, and I'm going to go for a lunge. She hits us with a Moonblast from an outspeed and takes Araquanid down too. All we have left are our two best team members, so I send in Quacksquabble and hopefully we can outspeed here. I'm going to go for an Aqua Step because that way I can get a speed boost as well, but she manages to get a Moonblast off and take us out as well. All that's left is Azumarill. I send it in, but if Quacksquabble couldn't outspeed, I don't think Azumarill can either. We go for an Aqua Tail, and one more Moonblast takes Azumarill out. I do have other team members in the PC, but to be honest, none of them are really strong enough, and with all these really good team members defeated, I think that's the end of the run. It's a shame to get this far and lose, but this game's actually really hard, and I'm happy with how far we got. I caught a Tatsugiri, but it was above the level cap. If I was able to use that, I probably would have tried this fight again. But thank you so much for watching, subscribe if you liked the video, and stay tuned for more like this.